Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Notorious Women Podcast, a comedy podcast about some of history's most notorious women. Okay, what am I doing introducing us? We obviously have a very special guest. Her name is Daniella Rabbani. She's notorious in a good way. Let's just be clear. Okay, she's a positive notorious. She's looking at me funny, so she's very excited.
So far, so good.
Let's see where
You
we
never
get
know.
today.
You never know what the day brings.
I mean, right? You might get mad. Okay.
I might, likely.
She is an actress. She is an activist. She is a podcast host as well. And she is amazing. We're so happy to have you on our show.
Yay,
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the work you do. I'm really, really grateful.
Thank you. We love the work you do, too.
Yes.
About
moms.
I wanted to start because I really want to get into what you do for women and motherhood, which I am so very grateful for. But I want to start because you have a theater background.
So much theater.
So much theater.
So much Shakespeare.
I love Shakespeare.
Yeah.
That's
doesn't
amazing.
really make it onto the internet, actually. I like to slip it in every now and then. That's what I did for so many years.
So when did you get, tell us, this is a good time. So you started.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
We might as well.
Let's do it.
I went to acting school at NYU.
Okay.
Fancy.
I was going to say a blessed
Fancy.
memory because it's sort of dead to me now because of all the Jew hatred happening on campus.
Yeah.
But I believe it'll be fine. It's going to end up fine. But I went to NYU and I did have the most amazing time there. And I studied acting at the Stella Adler studio. It's very Shakespeare focused.
Awesome.
And then my last show in the studio was directed by Tom Oppenheim, and I played Hermia in A Midsummer Night's Dream, and I remember this like yesterday. He pulled me to the side and he says, "Oh my God, you act like my family." And his family was Stella Adler and her father, Jacob Adler, who was the star of the Yiddish stage.
Okay.
And Yiddish theater ended up sort of creating what we know today as to be Broadway. But the legacy of the Yiddish theater was sort of dwindling at the time.
Yeah.
And so he said, can you carry on this legacy? Would you study Yiddish? And so I did. And I went on to do a lot of Yiddish plays in tandem with my Shakespeare, obviously, regionally. But yeah, I did.
I have a silly question.
Yeah.
Daniella,
have
you ever done Shakespeare with a Yiddish accent?
No, but I have done Shakespeare in Yiddish. There's a great, actually Jacob P. Adler he was the star of the Yiddish theater, and actually Stella Adler was raised on the stage. That's why she ended up being this grande dame and, taught Marlon Brando and whoever else.
Yeah.
And because she was born into this, tradition. And Jacob P. Adler played Der Jiddische König Lear, the Jewish King Lear.
King Lear?
And they translated King Lear into Yiddish. I did a rendition of it.
Who did you play?
I saw
many years ago. Cordelia.
I knew it.
I saw, just a side note, guys, and tell me if this is crazy, but I saw this documentary because I'm a nerd. Yes, I'm a nerd. Years ago, and
Lavetta,
I only remember certain parts because I thought it was the best. It was on the Yiddish theater, and it talked about how, and it was Yiddish theater and how it relates to modern day comedy, right? So a lot of what we think is American comedy is really Jewish American comedy, right? And born out of the Yiddish theater, and they were talking about how back in the day before we had television and it's basically the American groundlings, right? So, poor theater, poor theater goers would just have to get their entertainment in however they could. So I guess there's this history of the bad guy always had on striped pants.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
I like that.
I did not know that.
So we could always really notice, we just knew, oh, that's the bad guy.
As soon as he comes out, and the white hat, black hat, he had on striped pants. And that, I thought, that is pure comedy gold because striped pants, he comes out and they're like, boo!
Yeah, that's hilarious. It's very commedia dell'arte, actually, because it's a slapstick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I studied Commedia dell'arte at NYU. That's how I know it. Well, I don't know why NYU is getting so much play, but it really was a great time.
I mean,
because NYU is fancy. Like, it's
so
hard
fancy.
to get into that school. Like, it's hard to get into that school, especially in the theater program. It's highly competitive.
I did
and
that.
it's fancy.
I did that.
And then you can spend the rest of your life being like, that was me. That was me. I did it.
Right. I did that, and now I can talk about it incessantly. Cool. Great.
Everyone's really excited about that. Cool.
Yeah, we're theater nerds here.
Yeah,
So
no, we can
love
talk
it.
about
We're
that
very impressed.
all day. Can I just say,
we didn't tell anybody that Miriam was in the Yiddish theater.
I too was in the Yiddish. So a little fun background. Yeah, I was in the Yiddish theater, and then I decided that Daniella needed to take my place, and I handed the reins over, and there was a collective sigh of relief from the Yiddish theater that she was there instead of me, which is fine. I'm owning that. That's fine.
You laid the foundation.
There we go.
For me to soar.
Yeah.
Listen.
No,
you're
you know what
welcome.
I think it was?
Thank you.
Miriam,
What?
you have said it yourself. You play, when you were acting in your acting prime, especially in the beginning, you played little boys really, really well.
Daniella.
They just needed to transition to
I don't know if the
a
rest of
lady.
the world really cares, but what happened was they gave me the Molly Picone 3-song thing, right? Which I could not really hit all those notes, but they kept trying. And finally, one day, they said, we're going to do something else. What you're going to do is a monologue, because stop singing, girl, stop. And this monologue, you will be a young boy who's obsessed with Black Bart and Black Bart. Like that, it was the 9-minute monologue. So when I say that it was time for me to go, I mean, like, it was the longest monologue in the history.
You gave it your all. You really did.
I
And
tried.
we appreciate that.
At one point, Modal was like, maybe do a cartwheel. And I was like, we're pushing. I can't. No.
We're pushing it now. I have to go.
Yeah.
I mean,
I remember
you're
that.
so
If
funny.
anyone wants to know, the little boy part goes, "Ot geht Jankele,
Yes.
dort steht Jankele,
Oh my God.
weil ich bin a voiler Bücher. Jeder fragt men, was macht was tut Was ist Jankele, dort steht."
Oh my God.
not the
You know,
not the pointing to yourself.
yes, it was like a bit, like you can't
Who's
see it.
Yankel? I'm Yankel. It was a little boy she played.
That's it.
And I bet she killed that.
Well, I killed
She did a great
something.
job.
As the kids say, you ate and left no crumbs. Okay, that's what
That
you
Proud
did.
is
of you,
what I did.
Miriam.
Whether or not
We
I
are
hit a
proud of
note
you.
is another conversation.
Now, Daniella, I would
Yes.
imagine, though, your experience with Shakespeare, Yiddish theater, Yiddish Shakespeare,
Yes.
is the best training ground for voiceover work.
Oh no, it's not.
Like,
No, but I do. I enjoy language. I think if you make a career of reading copy like Colgate Optic White. I don't know what else I would say. What did I say in my that spot?
I don't
say
know, but I
things
would like them to sponsor this episode right now. That was amazing.
It goes like, your best accessory is your smile. And like, if you say that for your life, like day in, day out, that's how you pay your student loan. Like, you need to love language.
Yes.
You need to love consonants and vowels. And if I'm being honest, the sound of your own voice. So
Yeah. I like how you're
That's the
honest about
tie-in.
it. Because
that's
love
it.
it.
I mean, we're all like, filming this while I'm in a teeny tiny voiceover booth. But like, if you think about it, I spend so much time in here hearing the sound of my own voice. I would be lying if I said I didn't like it. I'd have to like it.
no, that's only human. You should love the sound of your own voice.
It's so weird.
I
I
like
think
how
only
we're-
women will
yeah.
be like, oh, I shouldn't love the sound of my own voice. Men are like, yeah, really, I like the sound of my own voice. And I sound like this.
My husband looks at himself and he's like, "Oh, damn, oh, good," and
Oh,
he
yeah.
means it.
yeah.
yeah,
So-
no,
and actually, by the way,
true.
it doesn't even matter what he looks like. He's like, "Oh my God, my hair," and it like he could have crumbs in his hair. He
Yeah.
could have like terrible bad head. It could be like. It doesn't matter. He loves himself, and I'm like, I'm here for that, and I want to normalize that for women too.
Yeah.
I really do. I wish we looked in the mirror and we're like, yes.
No, literally, when I was growing up, I have 2 older brothers. My brother James he was a ladies' man. All the girls like, oh my God, James. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
He would literally be like looking in the mirror, like kissing at himself, like, oh, you so handsome, boy. Look at you.
Right.
Look at you can't just like Lavetta. Your girls can't handle none of this. And I'd be like, oh my God.
Wow.
Like, do you hear that? That's the sound of me rolling my eyes constantly because you suck. But no.
Yeah.
He loves, and women should tap into that more.
Yeah.
Is he still like that as an adult?
Oh, he's even worse. And you know what? The women, like, they're like proving him right every time. They're reinforcing his belief about himself because I'm like, I guess my brother's kind of handsome, like, but he's just a terrible date. Like, he's just a terrible partner. Like, and I just like, ain't no amount of good looks is gonna overcompensate for that. But just in general, I grew up knowing how boys look at themselves. Like, oh my God, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. You know, you want some of this, and it's like, no, I don't. No, I don't at all. So yeah, I agree. Like, but you should love yourself.
Yes.
The problem is when you don't
love yourself and love what you
yourself
do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No. Exactly, Daniella. Exactly.
And be proud of what you do. Like, I joke that I hate hearing my voice, but honestly, every week I speak into this thing where I hear it and then I listen to it because we're editing and approving episodes. So I
love your voice.
God,
I don't know
thank
why
you.
you say that.
I've only said that to get a
voice.
compliment because I'm a girl and I can't just say I love my voice. So I just did it so that you would say, I love your voice, Miriam.
I have a cure for that, ladies. Listen to Meg the Stallion.
Okay.
What's that?
She will pump you up. You know who Meg the Stallion is? The singer?
Oh, Daniella.
No, tell me more.
Daniella, you're missing out, girl.
Really?
Like, it's okay. Don't listen around your kids.
No.
Because it's very, very dirty. But when
Meg the
you need to
Stallion?
feel good about yourself, put a little Meg the Stallion in your headphones and walk around the house. Like, if you have to do a task you don't really want to do, and you will finish Meg the Stallion and be like, I'm the baddest bitch.
And you'll be
Oh my God,
right.
I'm really excited about that.
Listen,
Thank you so much.
Lavetta
Everybody,
sent
did
me
you
a
hear that?
video
Write that
once,
down.
And I started watching it, and my children like weren't in the room, and then suddenly they were, and I was like, "Oh God, no!" Like, so that's the level of hide it from
It's
your
very
children.
crass. Yeah. It's very crass. Because she's like, she'll start out like, fuck being good, I'm a bad bitch. Like, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's what you need. So.
Okay, great. Let's do this. Thank you. Well, I think you should like your voice and what you do, Miriam.
Thank
I think
you.
there's no other way to stick. There's no other way to stick to it.
That's a good point.
You
That's
have
a
to.
fact. Speaking of sticking
especially if
to
it's
it,
creative.
I wanted to talk to you about, you made a movie a couple of years ago called Oma.
Yeah.
And I watched it the other day and I loved it.
Oh.
And you guys, it's a very short film. So all of y'all can go get it on Amazon Prime right now. It's literally 10 minutes long.
Do that.
Go to there.
Do that now. Listen to this and then do that.
Yeah, finish the episode,
First things
obviously.
first. First things first.
Wow, what
Miriam,
inspired
thanks.
that film? I think I have an idea of what inspired that film.
Yeah. So my grandparents are Holocaust survivors, and my grandfather died when I was 16. He was my favorite person. So he actually spoke Yiddish. So, but beyond that experience in acting school, my grandfather spoke Yiddish, and I had never learned it before, but it was sort of somewhere inside of me. So that also makes sense why I ended up doing the Yiddish theater and sing in Yiddish and all of that. But my grandmother lived until she was 94, which was only up until 4 years ago. So right before the pandemic, which actually, by the way, guys, I'm sort of happy for. She didn't have to live through that.
Me too.
Yes, she really, and she was a Holocaust survivor, so she wouldn't die. She just would not let go. She just would just never. She was just not about to end it. And I'm really glad she did when she did at the ripe old age of 94. And she was this beautiful force. She was like, I really mean it, like physically, she was just a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
And she was like blonde hair and blue eyed, and was very proud of where she came from in Chernovitz, etc. But she never told us her Holocaust story. And I was grown up like in a Jewish neighborhood where, we would tell these stories knowing that we would be the last generation that knew these Holocaust survivors. And we always knew that there was Holocaust denialism. And we could turn around and say, no, I met a Holocaust survivor, or my grandmother, this is what my grandmother went through. And I never could do that, actually. I didn't have the information because she couldn't. She couldn't. If she could, she would.
Right.
She's the type of person who would get in front of the camera when they set up to do that Steven Spielberg
the Shoah,
Shoah project, where they would interview all of these Holocaust survivors, and she just couldn't utter her own life experience. Which is so funny because my whole life is about me talking and telling stories.
Well, you went the other route.
I'm sort of like I'm healing that for my family line.
Yeah.
Yes.
So both my grandparents were sort of like stopped. They couldn't say it, and it really affected me. There's this study around epigenetics and how each generation carries the traumas of the previous generation, and I felt that very heavy on me. I had health problems. I was dealing with anxiety and depression and addiction, and I couldn't find my way in my life. To be fair, I lived a relatively safe, good, normal life, and I couldn't really piece together what was the issue there. And it sort of came to me with much, like self-introspection and therapy, but that a lot of it had to do with my grandparents' experience in the Holocaust, and needing to know. And I tried very hard to get this story from my grandmother, and I thought, well, if I make a movie, then I'll have a deadline, and there'll be people, and I'll fundraise, and I'll have to turn around and tell them. And I tried and tried and tried, and there was nothing I could do to get real concrete details out of her.
Wow.
And at some point I had to acknowledge, like, oh my gosh, this is her life, hers.
Yeah.
And in that there was healing. Like, I could seal it up in her. I could see her, and I could love her for wanting to shield me, or to herself, or, and I could have me, and we could be separated in that. And so that's what the film is about, is a girl who's going to get her estranged grandmother's Holocaust testimony for her story.
Yeah. I mean, it's really beautifully done. Daniella, have you ever heard of something that I invented? I explain it to doctors. It's called the Jewish stomach. And what it is after every test coming back negative, because you're actually fine, what you have is a Jewish stomach. And it is what it is. Sometimes it's awkward.
What it is.
But
yeah. Oh, sometimes it's stinky.
Yeah. But you're fine medically.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, but that they say that your gut is like your second brain.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a doctor once tell me that, because she was like, go to therapy. I mean, she did. She was like, your stomach needs therapy. I don't know what to tell you, girl.
Because it's like stress. Like when you're having stomach problems, it's usually, it's a lot. They say it can be because we have trouble digesting even our life experience or something.
Oh,
and honestly, I have this sort of spiritual feeling around, Judaism and the Jewish people, and we really do hold so much of our ancestors' stuff. And much of that, like I said, we need to separate from, so that we can feel, the healthiness, the security, the safety, the beauty of our own experience. But a lot of that is living in our gut.
Well, the stomach is the fourth chakra?
Oh, yeah.
Fourth chakra? I think it's the fourth chakra. So the chakra that the stomach it correlates to feelings of safety and self-esteem.
Stop.
So usually, I mean, I could be completely misremembering that, but I used to be really into metaphysics and and studying the chakras. And Carolyn Mace, have you guys ever heard of her?
No.
You should look her up. She's funny. She talks a lot about that, the things that, like, if you're having problems in one area, it could be, and you rule out like food or diet or something like that.
Louise Hay.
Oh, Louise Hay, but also Carolyn Mace was one of the, and it's spelled MYSS, not MA. No, Louise Hay I love. Like, I used to be a member of Louise Hay. Well, Louise Hay was a lot older, and she actually lived to be 90 something. R.I.P. She started like a basically a platform, a website. So it had all of these people in it. Sylvia Brown was on it, Marianne Williamson, who I used to like actually love Marianne Williamson's philosophy. But yeah, it's like, don't get into politics, Marianne. But Carolyn Mace. Yeah, I know. But Carolyn Mace talks a lot about, I used to follow her and read all her books and stuff like that. And it's about the chakras, and like if you're having trouble physically, a lot of times it's like a mental or emotional thing that you have to, look into. But it also reminds me, have you ever heard of the graphic novel Mouse? Have you ever heard of that?
Yes. No. I actually never read it, but yes.
I read it in college, actually. Yeah, I read it in college. And it's kind of basically a graphic novel. It's like similar to Animal Farm, but it's about the Holocaust. And it's similar. It has it's about, it uses animals in place of
How did I miss this? I thought I got
everything. It is so good.
Because it's banned in Florida.
Yeah,
Did you know that?
True.
It's banned in certain states.
In Texas and Florida.
Is it now? Is it? I got it in college, actually. And so it's just like, but I remember, because at first, if you're any human being and you get any kind of, and that's when they were teaching about the Holocaust in Florida, you're just horrified. And you're like, how can that happen? And then you get to college and you get more nuanced, literature. And you're just like, oh, this is like Animal Farm. Like, you're just like, oh, and then it's also a way to talk about it without re-traumatizing or being like, it's kind of like what they did, what a lot of Black creatives are like, when you show stuff about police brutality or violence against Black people, you don't like show it. It's not like violence porn or trauma porn, but you do want to always bear witness to people's experience, and because you don't want that to be erased. And it reminds me, have you guys been watching Fargo this season?
No, tell us.
No, I need
brilliant, actually. And it's about domestic abuse, and the way that they handle it, they use dolls. And it's really, really interesting when they get to the actual violence. Usually they start to use dolls. And I was like, God, how are they going to do this? And it's really, really like, it's a brilliant season of the show. Noah Hawley's a genius, and his staff, they're geniuses.
We need more of that genius, because I do feel like the trauma porn and the violence porn on social media has gone. It's really hurting our collective souls,
I agree.
our brains. We can't handle it.
We're not designed to handle it.
Because it's like, and it's like, are you showing it to get people as a call to action, or are you just showing it to re-trigger people, to make people feel bad? Like, what is your intent in showing it, right? So you always have to look at, behind that kind of thing. But it's, and when I read Mouse, it got into, and I believe that the creator was the son of a Holocaust survivor, and he talked about how there's this feeling of depression, and then he wasn't quite sure where it came from, and then he realized, but of course they can't talk about it. Can you? I can't even imagine experiencing that. I mean, unfortunately, we might have to experience that in this state, in the United States of America, because it's going down. If certain things happen, it's fucking going down, and people need to be prepared. And then you survive, but you lose most of your family, and then you're in a new place, and you have to rebuild your life, and then you don't want to go back to right. No. And you also want to shield the young people from it.
That's right. That's really how I felt. As a child, there was this feeling like I had to protect my grandparents from their own experience, and they were protecting me from their own experience. And, that in and of itself was scary.
Yeah.
Why so much protecting? And
I think it's interesting, though, Daniella, like from the other end of the spectrum, I was not so protected.
She talks about this.
She's like, sorry, Miriam. They gave us visuals at a really young age And when I watched my children grow and they started to hit the age wherein I saw pictures of concentration camps and I'm going, to a degree where I'm undertelling them because
Yes, so am I.
Yeah.
Lavetta, before we started this conversation, I'm just telling the audience, Lavetta was telling about a time of a loss of innocence. In your childhood, Lavetta, maybe you want to
talk
go
about
into
it,
that.
Lavetta?
About the racist ass racist,
racist,
Florida, aka Florida.
I know it's going to be shocking to everybody, but.
And unfortunately, it's a very common story. Most Black kids, that's their introduction to what it means to be Black in America. And I can only speak about the American experience. We were 8, but third grade, that's 8, right? Me and my friend Kathy walked home and my mother had asked me, she's like, can you, stay at one of your friends' homes before, because I won't be home for like an hour after you get there or whatever. And I was like, sure, me and my friend Kathy. And me and Kathy were friends and she lived like 3 or 4 doors down in the house down the street. And so we walked home literally hand in hand, just like, like little girls do. And then when we got on the porch, her mother opened the door and her face fell. And, kids are hypervigilant about, they pay attention to what adults, how adults are feeling for survival. That's just something kids learn. And I thought I had done something wrong. And, it's like, oh, did we get dirt on our clothes or something? And she comes out and she had to be a pretty young woman. Now I think of it, but obviously she's old to me. But like she snatches Kathy up and she's like, come in here. She slams the door. And I was just like, oh, did we do something wrong? And then Kathy comes back out and she's like, and I'm going to use the whole word. And she's oh, my mother says, we're not allowed to have niggers in the house. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. And so she goes back in and I just sat out there. I knew it was a bad word, but I didn't know what it meant. But I knew it's just a bad word. And I knew that I was it and that I couldn't come in the house. And I remember sitting on the porch and I saw the cat in the window. And I remember thinking, because in my house, you don't allow dogs or cats in the house. And I remember thinking, how's the cat get to go in the house and I don't get to go in the house? And I was like, screw this. Yeah. So I would just walk back home to my house and I sat on our porch. And I didn't tell my mother because my mother grew up in Florida when they were, she grew up in Florida. So my mother she wasn't a fan of white people to begin with.
Fair enough.
My mother would have gone down there and beat that lady senseless. I knew she would have done that. Like I had the wherewithal to be like, I'm not going to tell her. I was just like, oh yeah, I couldn't stay at my friend Kathy's house or something. And I was just like, yeah, I think I told her, oh, they said that I couldn't come in or something, but I didn't say the word because I knew that was like, so unfortunately that is a very, very common experience of little Black children in this country. And even at 8, like, and I remember it's so odd because it's the loss of innocence for both me and Kathy.
Yes.
Right? Because we literally were walking home hand in hand, like just that's what kids do. Like kids are like, you're nice to me, I like you. Like it doesn't matter like what you look like. It doesn't really like. I remember I had a friend named Carrie actually who, and this to this day, that's why I love red hair. I also grew up on Annie.
Yes.
And Carrie had the most bright red curly hair and she had freckles and I thought she was so pretty because I was like, you look like Annie. And she's like, no, I want to be Black. It's like, cause she's like, I want to have braids and I want to be so pretty and Black skin so pretty. And I was like, she's right. You're right, Carrie. But like, it's kids don't think about that until the adults. So even when they say the words, because I don't think Kathy knew what that meant. Like,
no,
but she just meant that, oh, I can't play with my friend anymore. And who knows what she said. She could have even said to her mom, like, Mom, why can't, my friend Lavetta come in? And then she's just like, that's how you treat children, indoctrinate children the bad way.
Yeah.
Because naturally they're not like that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
thank you for sharing that story, Lavetta.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, it's, and different versions of that happen throughout my childhood, especially from that point on, because you become more aware of it. I have a friend that actually put in my middle school yearbook, he called me a spade.
What does that mean?
And I didn't even know what that meant. That's a racist term. That's like an old school Southern racist term. My mother read it and she was like, who put this in your book? I was like, oh, my friend, I forget his name, Johnny or something, but he called me a spade in my own, like,
Well, punch
Yeah, it's
Johnny
like,
in the
it's-
face right now. What?
Yeah,
Florida.
You didn't
Florida.
deserve that.
No.
You didn't deserve that.
Oh,
No
no.
kid
Oh,
does.
no.
No kid does.
But
No
see,
kid
here's the
does.
thing. That is the thing I think most Americans are missing out on.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course it's not right. Black people know it's not right, but it's like we still have to protect ourselves from these people because these people mean none of us any good.
Yes.
They mean none of us any good. The anti-Semitism that's on rampant after what's happening in the middle. I saw all of that. Actually, my best friend in high school was Jewish, Adam Baskin. Hey, Adam. And we had a fucking skinhead. I fucking hate skinheads. Them fuckers.
Same.
He was in our Spanish class carving swastikas into desks, like, and giving us the evil eye. We're like, motherfucker, we gonna meet you outside. Yeah, you ain't got you and your little friends are not here now. But then he just sort of like crumbles into his chair. It's like, yeah, because you're a fucking coward. Like, you're only big and bad when you have outnumbered people.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, like anti-Semitism, like white people who are not Jewish have said anti-Semitism things to me as a black person. And I always feel like, and we could get into this a little bit, but I always feel like I'm like, if you don't like Jewish people and Jewish people are white, I know you don't like my black ass. So like, what are you saying when I'm not around? Like,
I mean, that's not necessarily true. That's not necessarily true, but maybe. But
Well,
I mean,
I feel like-
a person is a hateful person.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're anti-Semitic, you're probably anti-black. I feel like it's what do they call it? A precursor. It's a canary in the coal
gateway
mine.
drug.
kind
They
of.
call it yeah.
It's like, and also, why would you think me as a black person would be cool? Because again, me and Miriam have talked about this in the past off mic. Honestly, most black people outside of New York City is a whole different, like, but especially in Florida, I'm like, I couldn't tell the difference between Jewish people and other white people. Like,
Oh, right. New York City is different because I think it's like it's the largest Jewish community outside of Israel.
Yeah.
It's the largest amount of Jews in any city in the world is in New York City.
I didn't know that.
There's a very distinct flavor of Judaism, and there's like a pride in being Jewish, and so there isn't as much really Jews who present as white, and of course Miriam, however you identify, totally makes sense to me. But from my perspective, Jewish people are white passing if they look white.
That's how I feel.
And so it's not that it's actually. It can be an active choice to pass as white, to pass as the general public in order to, elevate your community and move in the ranks. And it is a level of privilege for sure. And it also doesn't, absolve you of your Jewishness and of your ethnic otherness and et cetera. But in New York City, there is a real distinct feeling of what a Jew is and what a white person is, and it's different. And I totally hear what you're saying, Lavetta. Like in the rest of the country, there are smaller Jewish communities, and to me also, they seem more mainstream, more white, more, I don't know, less Jewy. And so like I don't know I don't know what that is, but I see it too. And I was born and raised in New York City in New York City, so
gotcha.
I have a very familial feeling with a New York Jew. But like, I feel that way when I meet someone from Chicago who's Jewish or LA. Like, I'm like, oh, I wasn't sure.
Listen, like, for instance, they'd be like, well, you can tell Jewish, they have big noses. I'm like, all white people have big noses. To us, Italians got big ass noses.
True. I mean, like,
y'all got big ass noses. That's why you got to put on the sunscreen on your nose.
Oh yeah,
our noses tend to be flatter. So that's what I'm saying. For a black person who's not outside of New York, we're like, what are y'all talking about? Y'all all looking like to us. Okay, we can't tell the difference.
Although,
we can't be
Lavetta,
putting white people in the categories. Okay, listen.
And Daniella, you might have been there. So we were taking Yiddish classes. I think we were taking them together at some point. Remember, once a week, I forget his name, great teacher.
Nikolai Borodulin.
I can't say that anymore.
His name is Nikolai Borodulin. And he was born and raised in Birobidzhan in the USSR. And he didn't know he was Jewish until he was already married and an adult. And he like looked at his passport and and it didn't say that he was Russian. It said like ethnicity Jewish, and he was like, "Wait, what?"
And, wow, I didn't know that.
And then he was like, "So what is that?" And he, you know, he I don't even know if his wife is Jewish or if his children are Jewish, or he definitely isn't religious in any way, but he sort of poured his Jewish soul into learning Yiddish and teaching Yiddish, and this like, he gets so charged up, Lavetta, that like he would just be like sweating head to toe, like literally pouring sweat after an hour and a half class. This was not like a hot yoga class. This was a language class, and he's just sweating profusely. It was like so Russian and so good.
But also he was told like so these actors know zero Yiddish, and when you're done with them, they need to be able to perform in Yiddish. Good luck. So he just like dove in. Anyway, so my friend David, I'll say his name, I don't know if he's listening, who is Black, was visiting. He was visiting for the week. He lives far away, but he was like, I'm going to be in New York. So I was like, great. I said, but I have this Yiddish class Thursday night if you want to do something else. He was like, absolutely not. I would like to go to Yiddish class. And I said, I'm sure it's fine, but let me just double check that it's okay. And I double checked, and they're like, yeah, bring your friend. Cool, no problem. So listen, there was no better student in that one class than my friend David. David's taking notes. David's like, I'm going to learn Yiddish in an hour. I got this. So we start to leave, like we're done. And honestly, Danielle, like I'm not a good student. Like I just want to go to Yiddish land, learn it that way by talking, and then go on stage. Like telling me how to conjugate anything it doesn't work. Ask every French teacher I ever had. So we're walking out, and David looks at me. He goes, "Oh my God, you're Jewish." And I was like, "David, you are slow. You have known this my whole life." Like we would do like Friday night dinner. My friends would wait for me. Like after the blessings, then I could go and hang out with my friends, like in high school. Everybody knew I was Jewish. But he's like, "No, but you're not white." And I said, "Okay." And this is well before anyone's talking about any of this. There was no social media. There were no smartphones. So, right. And I was like, I don't know what to say to that. You know, like what? And he was like, what Lavetta's saying, like white people, Jewish people, so you're all one. But he was like, no, because I look around the room and y'all are Jewish.
Yeah.
You're not what you don't come off as white. You have a look to you.
It's not just a look. And I think that's what's so interesting about like whiteness and the idea of whiteness in general, because it's like, it's not just a skin color. It's also like a culture. Yeah. White is a culture. Black is a culture. Brown are various cultures. But like, you know, being Jewish, ethnically Jewish is like a rich, deep, different culture. And I think that's what he was probably picking up on now.
And also, when people say white, they usually mean WASP.
Right.
You know, and then later on you add in the Irish, you know, and then the Italians. But even the Italians, I'm like, y'all ain't real black a lot of times. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know, is the influence of the Moors? I don't know what's going on there. But also whiteness and black, race is a construct, right? So that's where you get into it. And it used to be we were people of our nations, right? So you are an Arab because you're from Arabia, or you know what they deemed Arabia, or you are Jewish because you're from Israel, or you know what I mean, like you're Russian. And so like it's all that construct of race came around during the transatlantic slave trade, frankly, to distinguish the WASP from the rest of us. And then, because me and Miriam always love the tease about white on white crime, because it's like Europe is a whole like study of white on white crime. It's like France and England had 100-year war. And it's like, and to us, we're like, but y'all all white people. Y'all literally, even by today's standards, the French and the English are all white. Yeah. But they're like, no, one's Catholic and one's Protestant, and those da-da-da-da-da. And it's just like, okay, guys, white on white crime is
I love this because it's like such a it like reminds me of the humility of realizing like, oh, we're a part of the world. Like we're not just, it's not like we can't superimpose American racial structures onto, you know, France and England. Like it actually doesn't make any sense. No. It is confusing. Yeah. And the same for all over the world. Mm-hmm. And I just like, there was such a long time. I mean, we talked about the Holocaust because, like, when am I not talking about the Holocaust? We were talking about the Holocaust because of my film. But, you know, my grandparents would have literally died to be white. My grandparents, who were blonde hair and blue-eyed, probably survived longest because they could hide, because they could pass. You know,
and what country were they from?
My grandfather was from Galicia in Poland, and my grandmother was from a place that's now called Czernowtsi in the Ukraine. At the time, it was Czernowitz, which had changed borders so many times over that she was born in the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. Her father served in the Austrian army. They believed themselves to be Austrian. They spoke German. And then, you know, at one point it was Romania. Another time it was Russia, etc. It was one of those places. But there was a very large Jewish population. But all the people who ended up surviving, many of them looked as white as could possibly be, which is what saved their lives. So it's a real, it can feel so insulting to a Jewish person when we're told we're white for various reasons. But one of the reasons is because that whiteness was the one thing that like saved our fucking lives. And yes, there is privilege to it now, for sure, undeniable, hands down, particularly in America. Yep. But we were never considered white. And my grandparents in Iran, I mean, are brown. They were brown. They were like visibly. They looked just like, you know, all those Palestinians that we see in pictures today. Like they look
Semitic,
Arab.
I mean, that's
because y'all are cousins. Yeah, because y'all are cousins.
Because they're basically the same, right? Because Saudi Arabia, which is where the Arab nation came from, right? Like you were saying, and Israel, we're the nation of Israel. We're really close.
Yeah, it's real close.
Really close.
It's real close.
It's real close.
It's like, or even for those people who are Christian, like I had actually one of my old roommates was from Lebanon, so his family, he was Muslim, but Lebanon has a huge Christian population, as we know, but he was explaining to me, because I was like, I don't mean to be this way, but when I look at it, Palestinians, Israelis, they kind of look alike to me. He was like, oh,
be this way, sir.
He's like, it's like because we're cousins. He's like, because in the Bible, what is it? Abraham's sons or something?
So Abraham had two sons. It was Isaac and Ishmael. And that's where it all got hairy for us.
They should.
Isaac is so Jewish people are the offspring of Isaac, and the Arabs are the offspring of Ishmael, right?
That's why.
Is that how it works?
As parents, you got to get your siblings to get along. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It starts in the home. We go back time and be like, Isaac, Ishmael, make up, shake hands, you're brothers.
It's true.
I could parent the shit out of it.
True.
Okay.
You seem like a great parent, Miriam.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I think she's a wonderful mother. And like, speaking of moms, though,
let's talk
tell
about
us
moms.
a little bit more about your podcast.
Yeah. So now you know a lot about me. And I and my family history, and the idea of war and division, and it always plagued me. This like idea, why can't we all just get along?
Right.
Yeah,
it was a real question for me, and I would read like biography after biography and Holocaust book after Holocaust book. And I felt like if I could know someone, I would love them, you know, if I could. And I feel that way in general. Like it's impossible to hate anyone you know, know well. It's like, so I set out to, know these moms and sit down with them, mothers who maybe in a gay marriage and raising children, or struggling with fertility, or there's some really crazy taboos, like even miscarriage, which is so common, is this like crazy taboo. And it's like, if I knew that I wasn't alone, if I knew about the Black maternal health crisis, if I knew, not just like as a statistic, but if Lavetta or Lavetta's sister would come to me and say, I almost fucking died. I almost died. And not because I'm a sick person, but because I'm a Black person. And, you know, I need your audience to know this. Like, I'm a non-binary parent, and like, I just exist happily with my child just like everybody else. And like, after more than 100 episodes, like all the strains and stripes of motherhood are like wildly varied and very underrepresented. So I just sit down with people and I get to know them in the hopes that whoever's listening doesn't feel so alone, and also that whoever's listening to the podcast can see the humanity. You know, I actually, Miriam reached out to me originally to say like, hey, do you know a Palestinian woman who could be, you know, a guest, so that we could really have a heart-to-heart. And I said, I want to find that woman. Like, and I want to pose this to anyone on, you know, who's listening. Like, if you find that woman who wants to sit down with me, I want to know her. I want to love her out loud.
Because I felt that too. Like, I feel like there's all these headlines and all these things on social media popping up and telling me how to feel, when I think we're all just people caught up in other people's strife. And I want to talk to people. I think the more human, I agree with you 100%, the more human you get, the better humanity gets. Does that make sense? Or is that like just a weird sentence?
Yeah, no, I think we live in a lot of privilege as Americans, where we can connect to each other, and like, we hold way more power as a society, even though it's like slipping from our very fingers. I see Lavetta being like,
fight for it, man, because it can go away quickly.
It can go away, and I'm recognizing how much power and privilege we have to connect to each other. And then, you know, there's a world in which the leaders across the pond, like all the way in Russia, in China, in Iran, in Israel, in Gaza, all these people, the leaders are sitting on piles and piles and piles of money on the necks of civilians. And, you know, America has serious issues. And Lavetta touched on racism, which is still present. There are little girls who are still going through this every single day, multiple times a day.
Actually,
even here in Brooklyn.
They're trying to get back to it. Like, fucking Ron DeSantis with his fucking cowboy boots.
Yeah,
like, these motherfuckers, let's be real. These motherfuckers are trying to get us to go back to 1950.
Yeah.
1950 was not great for a lot of people. 1950 wasn't even that great for the majority of white people. Okay, it was great for rich white people.
It was great for rich white men. That was it.
Yeah,
they were happy.
It was great, right?
Happy as fuck. Yeah.
But they really, really want to go back to 1850. And I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that. These motherfuckers think they slick. And we have to put our bodies physically in front of them, because they, you know how, I agree, when you get to know different kinds of people. My childhood was so great because I got to know different kinds of people. I got to know Muslims. I got to know Jewish people. I got to know Seventh-day Adventists. I got to know, you know, all kinds of people. And I have an empathetic heart. So I know that you can't judge a whole group of people by one person you meet, right? But so many people, and the way that prejudice in America, because I can only speak about America, we have that, our prejudice continues because we're like, oh, that person's different, right? Like, I met this one Jewish woman and she was cool, but you know how they are. Like, so somehow it's so ingrained in our society and the foundation of our society, which, you know, we inherited from England and France and Spain. So they don't get off the hook either. You know, so it's just like, we have to always be vigilant against that kind of stuff. And for those of us, because I do think there's a lot of us like us on this call that we want to try and to coexist, because we know that the fact that in America I'm a pickle girl. Nobody makes pickles like the Jewish people of New York.
Thank you very much.
Good pickles. I actually really like Israeli pickles, and I'd love to send them to you. They're fantastic. They're very different, though.
How are they?
And they come in a can. They're like tiny, like Persian cucumbers, and they're like, I don't know, they're complete. I will send them to both of you. Can you please send me your addresses? They're totally different, and they're very interesting. But I want to say, Lavetta, I totally agree with you, because people are rewinding the clock all over the world. And if we're not careful...
All over the world.
And if we're not careful, by the way, even our young generation, the Gen Z, like if we're not careful, those motherfuckers are going to take the bait. And
Yep.
and they
Yes.
are taking the bait.
They're starting
Yes.
to, yeah.
And we do in this moment right now at 3:44 on March 14th. That's when we're recording this. We do have enough power to sit across from each other and say like, wait, can you tell me more about that? And we can get to know each other. We can come together. We can ask for, hey, I don't actually know a Palestinian woman. Please, like,
Yes,
put me in
please.
touch. I was telling you about this Palestinian friend of mine who he's a man. We have totally different experiences, and half the population in the world, women all over the world, are suffering.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a real thing. It doesn't matter what race they are. It doesn't matter what socioeconomic fucking life they're leading. For the most part, I mean, if you're wealthy, I mean, it's better. It certainly is better.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's always better.
But still, and
still.
even still, you know.
Yeah.
And we also suffer from each other's judgments, and you know, so I'm grateful to have the opportunity right now to live in America, in an America I can still be proud of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have to do the work to preserve it because, you know, I remember years ago, I was just like, you know, as a Black person, I have legitimate gripes about this country.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a Palestinian gentleman, actually. I think I was still in college and I was like home on my summer break or something. And he was like, this is a great country. I was like, I don't know about that. He was like, no. He's like, I get what you're saying as a Black person. He's like, but I'll tell you this, because he's like, right now, you can actually start a business without having to pay somebody off. You could actually like start a business. There's steps where you have to go and get your business license. You do this, you pay a nominal fee, and you and it you know, it inspires like creativity and innovation. And when he said that, I was like, oh, he's so right. And that is what we're all fighting for.
Yeah.
The ability to be able to go online and be like, this motherfucker is an orange ball and hairy ball, and I want him to die and not be thrown in prison, right? Like, because we're just like free speech and like, you know, but free speech is also different than hate speech.
Yes.
Like if you're encouraging people to go out and attack people, you know, that's a different kind of thing. And so that is like the promise of America, even though we know the inception of it had its flaws in the foundation, but that's the promise of it, right? So that is what we are fighting for. And I could just speak, I am going to speak for all Black people in America. Those of us who are engaged, that is what we're fighting for. Because so often politically, people are like, well, why Black people did it? It's like, because we ain't gonna get all the shit we want, motherfuckers.
Yep.
Like, we are not gonna get everything we want. And we don't have the luxury of throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Lincoln was not a perfect man, but thank God he signed that Emancipation Proclamation, because so let's build on that.
Yes.
Let's build on something that's not perfect, because we're not going to get everything we want from one president, from one political party. And we need to always stay on the necks of these people, because the politicians go where we make them go. We put the pressure on them. They do what we want them to do because they're supposed to represent us, right? So it's all this dark money. It's all this like, you know, but make no mistake, there's a faction of this population in America, like you said, all over the world, Danielle, it's happening all over the world, where they're like, nah, let's go back to 1950. That was a better time. Make America great. Black people knew what the fuck that was. It's like, make America white again. Whites only again. They want whites only signs everywhere.
No, don't
and
say
for
that.
those POCs out there who are like, we're the model minority. In America is white people. And then there's the rest of us.
Well,
right?
And you know that because you were raised in Florida. The thing is, I was raised in, as I've said, New York. And within that, like a real shtetl, like a real Jewish community, which was a privilege. It was a beautiful upbringing, but you know what, the greater America. And
none of this stuff surprises me. No,
right.
like I said, like 2 weeks before the election, I was at a dinner party with some friends. All of them are white, and I was like, guys, I'm nervous. I think he's going to win. They're like, no, and they're all like liberal, and they're like, oh, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like all this like platforming that the news networks are doing, it's getting into people's psyche. It's like, I don't know. They're like, no, it'll be fine. And I actually, the night of the election, I went to sleep because I was like, I cannot. And I woke up and I looked at the news like, God damn it. Like, I was like, I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. And like,
I cannot believe you knew. I mean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I got a UTI.
Listen to black women. Listen to black women. We were telling y'all, we were like, listen, Hillary Clinton is not motherfucking perfect. No politician is going to be perfect.
I mean, she's close. Like, that bullshit against her was so stupid. Come on.
This is what I tell people. If Pennywise had come up from under the sewer and ran against Donald Trump, my black ass would have still voted for Pennywise, okay? Because we know what we're getting. Pennywise just wants to eat children every 27 years, okay? He has a plan. Eat children every 27 years.
He's only president for 4, so we'll be fine.
He's going to eat a child and then disappear. It's like,
nom. So,
Exactly.
wait, do you think that Trump is going to win again? Because I do see, as a progressive, as a liberal, as a person who's only ever voted, Democratic, I'm like, what the fuck is happening to, am I allowed to curse?
Oh, yeah, all day.
What the fuck is happening to the progressive side, left-leaning side of this country? Like, this is getting
and this is what I mean about, like, I get that you have legitimate gripes. That's the American way. Politics, like, you have legitimate gripes. But this is not the time to be sitting this game out. Because this motherfucker could definitely win. And I'm telling you, and this is not hyperbolic, if he wins, they will literally implement a grandfather clause for immigrants. So unless your grandfather was an American citizen, you go back to wherever they will literally put
you
people
in
on
Jerusalem,
ships.
friends.
I mean, I'm trying to do the math if I can stay or not. I don't think so.
They will put people on ships and put them out to sea. This is how crazy these people. You're not allowed to do that. That's just improper. But they would literally put people. They will up the what do they call them now? Where they have the Latino population. These what do they call them? They're internment camps basically. But what do they call them? They call them where they put the babies in cages during his first term.
Oh no!
They will build more of those. They'll take away any kind of civil rights. And civil rights don't just help black people. I think that's what people don't really realize. It helps women, white women.
That's right.
It helps anybody who, it helps underrepresented groups. So all the advances that we've, all of that's gone. I wouldn't be surprised if they cancel people's degrees. So you were a doctor or a lawyer today, and they're like, oh, you're not white, so that is null and void. They will do stuff like this. And I think people are like, no, that never happened, because as Americans, we're also very privileged and spoiled in a lot of ways. We can't really conceive of it going shit back crazy.
That's right.
But it's like, he's already told you that. Like,
they don't believe him. They don't believe him. I've talked to people who would vote for him, and their response is, he's just saying those things to get the vote, but he would never do that. Which honestly, that's what they were saying before 2016. But that, to me, he told the truth, and he worked to implement every horrible thing he said.
And the thing about Trump is that the only thing that really saved us is because he's so incompetent. But the people around him are not incompetent. Steve Bannon got a motherfucking plan.
He's laid the foundation. He's laid the foundation for a lot of fucking crazy in this world. So I don't know how much we got away with, because he was only in office for 4 years, so he could only do so much damage, but he did so much damage.
But he did a lot of damage.
Yes,
like, look at the Supreme Court. Look at the Supreme Court.
Yes, he did.
Can we add a judge on the Supreme Court, please? Just one.
I mean, we need a supermajority, and that's the thing about our side, because we believe in decency, and we believe decency will run. These motherfuckers don't know what decency is, and that's what I think people don't realize on our side is, like, you're dealing with crazy people. You're dealing with people where logic does not make sense. You're dealing with people who will be like, black people are nasty, I don't want them near me. Oh, but you can, my baby can suck from a black woman's nipple, and you can cook my food. So how are they nasty if you
raise
like,
my children? What?
You're dealing with people who it does not make any sense. It does not make any sense, and you're trying to reason with an unreasonable person.
Okay, now it's gonna sound like I'm disagreeing with you, and I'm not. I am in the middle of a crisis, and I'm posing this to you. No, a political crisis.
Let's do it.
I think there are liberal, progressive, left, democratic people who are not making any sense, who, as you say, Miriam, are not believing the Hamas charter or
women.
Iran or Russians. I mean, like they're literally reading the Osama bin Laden's writing and saying, "Wow, I can't believe I've been lied to all this time," and he really has a point. I mean, there are cuckoo crazies among us.
Well, here's
our
what.
Own.
Yes, I like to try to find the glass half full, and I don't know how full this
go
is.
give it to me.
But
yeah, give it to me.
Do you remember the whole Bernie Sanders situation? Do you remember
which one?
The one wherein Trump became president, the bad one, the really bad one. I met a lot of super crazy progressives around this time. And I remember trying to reason with them, saying like, I hear you, but he did not win. And therefore, we obviously have to vote for Hillary. Like, aren't our values aligned? And the answer was no, our values are not aligned. The answer was, I'm going to write in Bernie and let Trump win. There was a lot of, I want to believe what I would, and it's very, most like, I joke that like part of our issue is that we get along, like we can see every side all the time, right? We're always so empathetic. We see, but I think there is a faction of people that are not looking for other sides. Like I'm always like, tell me I'm wrong, because I've made mistakes. I've been wrong, and I'll like admit it all day. I really will. Lavetta knows my dark secrets. But that's
I bet the podcast listeners do too. Just have a feeling.
Yeah, hopefully. But do they know all of them? I don't know. Keep listening. But I do think there is a faction because human is human. Right? And humans will lie on both sides of the line. And you're going to have some of those humans who are very liberal, who are very Democrat, blah, blah, blah. But if they don't get, like Lavetta said, every single thing they want, they'll burn it down. Because they live in America, they live in the privilege of growing up in a world that never had a bomb thrown at it other than the one bomb that they were too young to know about, right? It was one, this country is huge. Whereas in like
September 11th.
Right?
Yep.
And that was like, that felt like a one-off. And so you can, I do believe that that most people aren't like that, but.
I mean, listen, in the defense of the progressives, the first time around, you could conceivably, again, as a black person, I'm like, that's some bullshit. I'm not taking that chance. But even there's some black progressives who, and they're always trying to push like, we need a third party. I'm like, we can't get shit done. No. What we want with two parties. Yeah. What you think we really gonna get something done with three parties? That's not gonna happen. So we have to live in the realistic. Black women didn't overwhelmingly love Hillary Clinton. I happen to love Hillary Clinton, but I remember talking to a friend of mine, her mom was like, I don't know about all that, but she's like, well, I'm gonna vote for her because the alternative is the other man, and I'm not doing that, and I'm not sitting home. People have died for the privilege to go to the polls and vote and not be killed. So I'm going to exercise my right to vote. We have to be adults in the room, right?
That's right.
So it's about like, what are the choices? The primary is your opportunity to vote for who you want, right? I think last time, I don't know who I voted for. I don't know, like primary, that's your opportunity, right? But when we get down to the nitty gritty, I need you to show up, and we need to show up for each other. I'm not just showing up for black people. I'm showing up for all women. I'm showing up for Asian Americans, Native Americans, Arab Americans. I'm showing up for all those people. I'm showing up for women who want to have the ability to have a child safely.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
I'm showing up for all those people. I'm showing up for the college kids who I don't want them strapped with debt or burdened with debt coming out of college. That's who I'm voting for, right? I'm well beyond that age. So that is who I'm voting for. And I think that's the thing, because Americans, we really think, oh, I'll be fine. I'm like, case in point, in Florida, these white Republican women are furious because Ron DeSantis passed a law. He and the Republican-led House and Senate in Florida, in the state of Florida, passed a law getting rid of alimony.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Hilarious, right?
And
they
these
voted for that shit.
Republican women, they voted for it because they're like, oh, he's going to screw the immigrants and the people. He's going to screw them. He's not going to screw us. So they are livid. And even like he passed a law like trying to stop and frisk people who look like illegals, right? This is targeted for their Hispanic population. That's who it's targeted to, right?
Right. Yeah.
All the construction, and when the day it went into it went into effect, all of the construction sites are like ghost towns. Because the migrant workers are like, I don't have to put up with this shit. I'm going to go to a state that I don't have to get harassed because I just want to come here, make some money, send money home, and maybe go back home. Yeah. Yeah. Nobody wants to come here from another country. They come from these beautiful countries that maybe their gangs have taken over, war has taken over, and they're like, I guess I got to come here. Like, they don't really want to be here. They want to be back there with their family. Wherever that is.
Here's the land of opportunity. Like, my father didn't want to be here. He didn't want to leave Israel.
Of course.
But he moved here after the Yom Kippur War, and he was heartbroken. And you know what? He had opportunity here. Like, and every time we would get into a cab, and we live in New York City, so we would get into cabs all the time. He would sit in the front seat with the cab driver, and they would talk about wherever the cab driver is from. And that cab driver was from everywhere, like everywhere in the world. And they were here bringing that, just like you said, they were working to send back money in the hopes that they'll, go back to their home country, and maybe their family was still there and they were busting ass, but they could make money here. They could make a living here.
And now they're trying to change that. Like here in California for years, because California used to belong to Mexico. There's that. But like the going back and forth over the migrant workers will come here for 3 or 4 months, work, spend money here, then go back home, 6 months, come back. Like for 120 years. Everything was fine. But then politically, people have these sort of social wars that they're doing, right? So it's like, well, let's demonize those people. And then it becomes more difficult. And then the local businesses who depend on these migrant workers start to suffer. So in Florida, the small business people who probably voted for Ron DeSantis are like, well, we just wanted to scare them. We didn't think they weren't going to show up to work. Really?
Also, all those those rich white people have no one to add onto their home, mow their lawns. You know what I'm saying? Like they were
for less than $15 an hour.
Right.
You're not like
that's the thing. It's not that they don't have people. It's that they don't have people who will work off the books, who will give them a good deal. Like, you know what, guys? Like you can't have it both ways.
You can't have it both ways. And that is what I would say to the progressives to me, like the extreme on the left, there's these flat earthers. I'm like, guys, I'm not having a conversation with you. Well, I'm not.
It's almost like going in a circle. It's like the progressives on college campuses that are like drawing swastikas and spitting on Jews are like, you're looking like a neo-Nazi,
you're looking like
babe.
on the side. Yeah.
And it's like they've gone so far left, they're right now.
Yes. I feel like I've seen it before. I feel like that's what happened when they couldn't vote for Hillary. They couldn't. I was like, you realize, like, I had a friend. We are not friends anymore. She was mad at me for voting for Hillary. I saw her that day and she went, you voted for Hillary, didn't you? And I was like, yes. The hell did you do? I didn't ask. I don't want to know. But it was like, there's an extremism that, both
everyone can engage in.
Yes.
All sides have a level, can get extreme.
Yes.
I call it the Kanye effect. Kanye West is dead to me because he's dead. Motherfucking
oh my god! But I did. By the way, I did listen to. I'm saying she's a gold digger, but today, that was by accident. That was by accident, and then I played it, and I was like, but is Kanye West dead to me? And then I played it through, and I was like, it's a good song.
Oh,
I can't enjoy anti-Semites, I can't get into a car.
Yeah.
I can't listen to Beethoven.
I mean, see, and that is what I mean. Like it's like people who are like, well, I can't buy that because it's like, well, you're not going to be drinking, you're not going to be driving nothing, you're not going to be looking at no TV.
There's nothing. I listened to it and I liked it, but he's
dead to me because he's like, slavery was a choice. I'm like,
Right.
motherfucker, read a fucking dictionary. That is
I know. It's so
I
bad.
can't with you. Now he's got like these either gay people who are right wingers, Jewish people who are right wingers, black people. I'm like, who are these people? And they think that all of us are insane and they're right. And I'm like, see, I can't have a conversation with a fool, because if you argue with a crazy person, you end up being crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it with these people. Unfortunately, I'm hoping that they're just louder online, because I think the people on the ground are like, well, I'm voting also for the people who are doing stuff in my state, because America is huge. And that's another thing people forget, right?
Yeah, that's huge.
So like, I need to vote. I need to just go to the polls. And I will say, black people who vote, the majority of us are like, yeah, we're not going to get everything we want, people. Yeah. But if we could get 60%, 70%, 80% of what we want, that's better than getting negative 20% of what we want. Yeah. And the other person represents negative 20, negative 50%.
Yeah. Yeah.
So suck it up. And you know what? Actually, I think the progressives have done a really good job in the Democratic Party. I think they have pushed, Joe Biden a little bit more to the left. Because listen, I could be left leaning as possible, but I'm like, what can we actually get past?
Right.
You have to be playing chess instead of checkers. You have to always be playing chess politically. And I think that you can be frustrated that you're not getting everything you want, but who don't get frustrated, and they keep doing it and doing it and doing it until they get abortion shot down, Voting Rights Act shot down. It's the fucking other side.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's who you're fighting
I won't
against.
give up hope, because I don't want to. And that's just where I stand on that.
Oh, I love that,
and
Miriam.
we have to keep pushing our side. Like, if we get a supermajority in the Senate and the House, we can get whatever the fuck we want. So let's do that. Can we do that?
Let's do it right now, you guys.
Yeah,
we got this.
I'm down. Miriam, I love that. I love that you don't give up hope. I just
don't give up hope, Daniella. Don't give up hope.
It's starting to. I told you I'm in a crisis.
You have children. And think about like how you want them to live. Think about like your grandparents. I love that your grandmother lived to be as long as she did. Like, you are the manifestation of their wildest dreams.
I know. It's really crazy. And like, they had so many acts in their life. It was like normal. And then it was the upside down world where they lost everyone and everything. They built the state of Israel. I mean, after thousands of years, they came back to the land of Israel, to the language of Hebrew. They built it with, like their bare hands after surviving the Holocaust. It's wild. Then they lived in the United States. I mean, life is long. Life is
life
is very long. And that is what we're voting for, a long life.
Well, that's what I think
voting
about
for a long
too,
life.
because Lavetta and I live in a lot of history on this podcast. So we go through a lot of women who've lived a lot of lives, and you see how, like, it's kind of inspiring to me, because a lot of the women we talk about here have gone through hell and back, right? And and they somehow get through it. And in many situations, the odds are stacked against them for the most part, right? But they get through it, and life is now. And so that's what we can do. Like, that's what we can do. We can live our lives. We can speak our truths. And we can reach out to connect to humanity as best we can, and sympathize, where we can sympathize, and find that connection with each other. That's
don't lose hope. And for me, I'm a Trekkie.
She is.
So
Trekkie.
I live in a world where I want 100 years from now, I want us to be living on motherfucking Mars, exploring the universe, and we just got to get through these silly social wars that people want to continuously have, because they want to conserve power and put power in the hands of a very few people. But I think about one of my favorite movies is Slumdog Millionaire.
Yeah.
Because I think about how some kid, it could be a girl or boy or non-binary person who is in poverty in one of these war-torn areas, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's in Ukraine, and their little brain cells are so focused on surviving that they can't focus on like coming up with a cure for cancer,
Right.
coming up with like, regenerative way to do energy and like,
Living
to
on
heal our
Mars.
planet. Like, and so all of this stuff just gets in the way of human progress.
does.
And that is the thing that, so that is what we should be voting for. Who's the person that's going to help us to continue to, progress as human beings, right? So like the kid who comes from a poor family, hell, the kid who comes from a rich family who can focus on, because maybe they're not expected to do much with their brain. They can focus on doing something with their brain or creating beautiful art,
Right.
creating beautiful music that inspires a person who needs to focus on with their brain cells and creating, I don't know, the chemistry. I don't know. I fail chemistry. I don't know, like whatever it takes to get us on those spaceships.
Things. Things for science. Word.
I think we got it. And physicsy things.
Physicsy things,
Very specific science. Okay. Let's be all smart and stuff. All right.
Just you gotta cut through you just gotta propel us out of here.
Right.
Yeah, you got to cut through like the people who like, and that can come in any human form.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That can come in any human form. So let's make it possible for those people who have truly like, you have the brain capacity. Oh, let's put you in this program that's for, like physics, science gifted kids and like It doesn't matter. It's kind of like what they do. What's the hospital where the parents don't have to pay anything? Is it a Shriners?
It's St. Jude's or
St. Jude's Hospital. Like they're like, we don't want the parents to have to worry about anything but focus on the kid getting better. Like, how can we do that for education?
Right.
For
like a real education.
Art makes people feel good, beautiful, having open spaces, and like for all of us to enjoy. That's the promise of America, right? So these motherfuckers who are anti that, they need to go. They need to go.
Need to go. Yeah.
They need to go. That's what I would say to people who are kind of struggling.
All right, Daniella. I could talk to you all day.
We basically have been talking.
Have been talking to you all day.
I don't regret a second of it.
I enjoyed it.
I loved every second of it. I really did.
Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you
so much. Thank you for doing the work you're doing. Thank you for giving me a little bit of what they would call in Yiddish chizuk, a little bit of strength.
I don't know this.
Chizuk.
And hey, ladies, before we go, side note, when I was a kid, I was like, I'm going to learn Hebrew, I'm going to learn Arabic, and I'm going to learn Yiddish, and I'm going to learn like, I really wanted to be like a linguist at one point. I just studied Japanese and Spanish, but I was just like, oh, this is really hard.
It's really hard.
So I love it.
I believe in you. I think you can still do it, Lavetta.
I got some
there's nothing you
Hebrew
can't do.
books if you want to look at them.
Life is long.
Life is long.
Life is long, babe. Life is long.
So it might as well be enjoyable. So
true. So true.
All
Thank you
right.
again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
And we're going to wrap up the show. Hey, guys, that wraps it up for another episode of Notorious Women. And thank you again, Daniella Rabbani, for being our guest this week. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you and support you?
Sure. Thank you so much, friends. I'm at Daniella Rabbani, and my podcast is called Mom Curious, and you can find it anywhere you cast your pods. And Oma is the film that Miriam was talking about that I directed. It's on Amazon Prime. And would you message me? Would you send me some chizuk? Let me know how you're feeling these days about the election and life in general. Anyway, I would love to be in touch. Miriam and Lavetta, thank you. Gregory, also here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Our behind the scenes guy. Hi, Gregory. All right, that wraps it.
We lifted the veil. So you go. You say it. You say it in the clear.
All right, that wraps it up for Notorious Women podcast. Well, that is making me close it out. I was not prepared. I can do this.
It's called reparations.
Okay, fine.
Miriam.
Okay, fine. Okay. Okay. That wraps it up for this episode of Notorious Women podcast. To find us, you can find us on all the things. Listen, Notorious Women podcast, TikTok, if it's still around. I don't even know what's happening with that. Instagram, YouTube, you can also listen there as well. Leave us a comment. talk to us, please talk to us on Instagram. You can also email us at notoriouswmpod@gmail.com with your thoughts and suggestions. And Lavetta, what else?
You hit it. I mean, Patreon. If they want to send us some shekels. Is that did I say that right?
Yeah.
Some shekels?
Yeah.
They want to send us some shekels, some money,
right.
some paper. You can do that at
Pesos.
patreon.com.
We'll take pesos also.
Literally
Pesos,
anything.
absolutely.
Throw it at us.
You
got euros?
All of it.
A euro is nice. Oh, I'll take a euro.
Yeah.
A euro's very nice.
Give me a pound. Give me a pound.
Ooh, a British pound. Yes.
I know. Those guys never, they never fail to be right on top.
Right on top. All that money. You can send that to patreon.com/notoriouswomen, and that's patreon.com/notoriouswomen.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.